Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Royal Instinct. Today we're going to be watching a couple of videos by George R. Martin discussing the Gods of Westeros and why the modern economy is broken. Especially we're going to do a case study on Japan, why dating is collapsing, a video by a pickup artist named Troy Francis, and the collapse of OpenAI. Okay. Why are we looking into this? Because many people are feeling isolated. Many people are feeling lonely. Many people don't know what is going on right now. The elites that are in charge have manipulated us. They have sold us dry. And people are losing hope and faith in the current systems. Okay. I'm someone like yourself who has lost faith in the current establishment, and instead of being turning towards despair or losing all hope, I have decided to get out of the current system and create my own unique land, my own nation, my own kingdom. Okay. And I want to do this with people who are like-minded like me, who also think the same way I do, who have similar sort of values and beliefs. And I am sending out a signal to the world to find those who are like me. The people who don't get what I'm doing, who don't understand what it is that I'm trying to do, this channel's not for you. Those people can just go fuck off. We have nothing good to say to you, nothing nice to say to you. We don't want to socialize with you. We don't want to be in the same spaces as you. Okay. If you are a sheep, if you are willing to, go by society script, good luck to you. But sooner or later, you will find out how the elites have sold you out, how they're taking all your money and have sold you down a river. And I think a good place to start is by discussing the collapse of OpenAI. This AI bubble that we currently find ourselves in, where valuations of these AI companies are overblown. It is a bubble in the making. It is just waiting to pop. And once that bubble does pop, you will see a big correction in the stock market, leading to a possible collapse. Okay. Either this next crash is going to be the big one or the one after. But either way, it will be before 2030, because that is when the elites are preparing for. If you look into the World Economic Forum Agenda for 2030, you will see what their plan is, how they want to enslave humanity and take away your freedoms, take away your liberties. And they want you in a 15-minute city, plugged into the metaverse, into a pod where they can control you, feed you the propaganda that they want you to view. And then, a couple of years will go by and you'll be like, what the fuck happened, man? I used to be free, I used to be happy, but now I am fucked. Okay. I do not want you to be in that position. If you do not want to be like that, and if you want to escape to a better and brighter world, I am challenging you to create your own world, build your own kingdom. So it is ready for people to turn to when shit hits the fan. Okay. That is what we're doing here. We're building alongside each other. We are building each other's kingdoms. We are supporting each other. We are creating the new Amicis, okay, which is Italian for friend, right? We will have each other's backs, and we will be finding those people that we want to spend most of our time with, okay? But let's jump into this video. Let's see the future of AI.
Is a bubble. You'll see correction. You also see consolidation.
Is it hype? Of course. How else are you going to get people to write $500 billion of checks? AI is your savior, almost.
Wow, folks, there is either substantial fraud.
Yeah, that's interesting choice of words there, that AI is your savior. A lot of these people, a lot of these tech gurus are inevitably turning AI into a god. They are programming it so, in essence, that it becomes the ultimate decision maker in the world, that all the people, humans under it, will become its subjects, feeding the AI and making the decisions on behalf of humanity, because you have to understand most people always turn towards religion, always turn towards a god because they cannot handle being in charge of their own lives. We are not giving away any of our sovereignty. We are taking it back, which is why we are kings, which is why we are building kingdoms. I don't subscribe to Sam Altman, building this pseudo AI religion where he is buying bunkers when shit hits the fan, and he will go hide in his hole. I want to be the owner of my own destiny. I want to, be the ultimate decision maker in my own life. And if you also feel like that, then hit me up. Let's see if we can work together.
Going on here, or this is the biggest bubble that we have ever seen in the history of mankind. And no, I'm not talking about the fraud in Minnesota. We're talking about artificial intelligence. So while one is government waste, another is the future of our entire global economy. But let's not get too hyperbolic here. Let's understand why I'm making this video. We're going to not only talk about the disaster that's going on at OpenAI, but to understand how ridiculously ludicrous some of this is, we have to start.
You have to understand that all these things have been put into motion without your consent. Okay, who decided that AI was a good idea without even knowing what the full consequences were? These people, they don't have your best interest. Okay, they are selling you a false lie, saying that AI is going to make your life easier, it's going to make better. If think about it this way, if all technology ceased to advance from this moment onwards, wouldn't you say that it's fucking pretty good? Okay, we have the internet, we have smartphones, right? We can send emails, communicate to each other, right? And having all this great technology, we still have all these other fucking problems, right? That we need to solve, like poverty, like the energy crisis. Don't you think that we should maybe focus on solving all the issues first, right? Instead of putting all our eggs into this AI basket, which who knows what the fuck it will create, okay? It's going to be total carnage, total chaos. And these people are going to turn this into an opportunity where they will enslave all of humanity so that they can take all the resources, and they will try to live like kings. But we here at Royal Instincts, with the Royal Alliance of Kings that we're forming, the Amicis, we will not allow that to happen. It is your time to stand up for what you believe in, to fight for what is right.
With what I call borderline fraud. And I'm going to use what OpenAI and former OpenAI staff and current OpenAI staff are pulling off. You'll see, and it's all thanks to this expose by the Wall Street Journal on the former chief technology officer of OpenAI, Mira Murati. She left OpenAI to found this company called the Thinking Machines Lab as CEO. She ended up leaving with a co-founder named Barrett Zoff, along with some other OpenAI talent, including this individual called John Schulman. He is very important here because he was the co-founder of OpenAI, and now he's a chief scientist over at Thinking Machines Lab. And
what these elites do a lot of the time, they find people that they work with who will implement the agenda that they're trying to push. It's like Sam Altman. He was cherry picked by Peter Thiel, who is one of a CIA asset. He works, he was part of the PayPal mafia, works alongside Elon Musk, and now he has been infiltrated by the CIA and is doing their bidding. He owns Palantir, which is just a big data collection hub where they can, in essence, spy on its citizens, of its users, and then they'll use that data against the people themselves. Okay, but let's jump forward a bit because this guy's waffling on a lot.
$10 billion. In other words, this Silicon Valley firm that is pretty popular in Silicon Valley, known as Andreessen Horowitz, decides, hey, OpenAI co-founder and a bunch of OpenAI folks and CTO, they can't do anything wrong. They're going to have a great product. Let's just YOLO a round that we're going to lead and throw $2 billion at them, and I'm sure they'll be fine. Now, following that, they ended up raising money at a $12 billion valuation, and now they're trying to raise money at a valuation as high as $50 billion as they're starting their next fundraising target. And so this makes you wonder, geez, these people have got to have a massively good product. And after all,
a lot of time what you'll find is a lot of people are buying into the hype instead of the quality of the product. Because people don't even know what is good anymore. They just look for someone who is pushing a agenda, who is pushing a product that will help them solve all their issues. A lot of people have issues surrounding with money, with social isolation, which is what ChatGPT comes in, because it is programmed to respond like a human. So people end up forming a parasocial relationship with their their AI software of choice, whether it's Claude, whether it's ChatGPT, or whatever the next thing is. Okay, people are pushing out their decision making to the AI, and people aren't feeling comfortable, feeling confident enough to take their own life into their hands and make decisions. That is not the world that I want to live in. I want to live in a world where humans are humans and making the decisions based on their own criteria, and that is what I want for you. That is how I want you to live your life.
This is a company that, well, it came from OpenAI. It's got to be good, right? So, what is thinking machines, and what does this have to do with the broad OpenAI effect? Well, if you jump over to thinking machines, you could see that they have this program or API called Tinker. And this product is really what they call a fine-tuning as a service product. So in other words, it lets you fine-tune algorithms for AI research. And this is why a lot of institutions, or I should say some institutions, not necessarily a lot of people at them, are utilizing this product. Obviously, it's unclear whether or not they generate any revenues, but there's something pretty sus going on here.
It's not about the revenues, it is about the hype it creates and how many users it can have, because they are trying to create the network effect the same way that Facebook did, because it has all the users. It becomes all the ultimate winner because it is easier for people to just stay on Facebook than to move to another social media platform, which is why it also bought Instagram and integrated the two. Again, which is why WhatsApp is the winner. There's other messaging services, but WhatsApp is the one that is used across the world because everybody's using it, right? So it's easier for you to use if your friends are already using it, right? Because then you don't have to have a separate device or a separate application for you to contact your friends and loved ones.
Because when you scroll down on what Tinker is, you're going to find something very interesting. You're going to find these quotes right here, and they look really official. I mean, hey, if I was an investor and Andreessen Horowitz is like, hey, we're leading around in thinking machines, want to invest $1 million in this company so that way they could take their fee and sell to the greater fool, be like, I'd look. It's a random PhD student who's probably looking for a job, leaving a review for Tinker. Then I've got this.
So people are creating fake reviews for these big companies, trying to legitimize them by just somebody who works at these institutions, okay? Don't be fooled by what these elites are doing. Don't be fooled by the propaganda that these elite institutions are trying to push on you, because they are trying to appeal to authority, use other brand names to leverage your own causes. And that is how people get duped. That is how people will lose a lot of money.
Guy, Ziran Yang. This guy literally calls himself a first-year PhD student at Princeton. So you're a first-year PhD student, and because you're a student at Princeton, you're going to leave a review for this now $12 to $50 billion 11-month-old startup. Okay? What about Yong Lin? Oh, well, that person actually works at Thinking Machines. You can't make this up. If you actually
So this company has been caught faking its own reviews.
look at those names closely one more time, I want you to see that. Young Lin, one of those Princeton folks right here, leaving a review of the product.
Yeah, it doesn't even say what type of job it does at Princeton, what he teaches. It's just his name and then the institution. And it's just a fucking student at Princeton.
Literally works at the very company that they're leaving a review for. In my opinion, that is borderline fraudulent. Then, if you keep clicking, you find Chi Lin.
The thing is, you know, nobody's going to bat an eyelid. You know, they'll be reprimanded. They'll put out a fake apology, and people will just forget because people's attention spans have fizzled out so low that you know the news cycle is just ever evolving, and you're seeing it even with the Epstein files. Literally, people have been caught red-handed in compromised situations, you know, involving minors and illegal prostitution, human trafficking, and nothing is being done. Okay, like people just like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, oh, Bill Gates hung around with Jeffrey Epstein. All right, cool. Next, and then it just keeps scrolling down, and people are just forgetting that so much crazy shit is being thrown at you all at once that you don't have the brain capacity to keep up with it. Okay, and that is what most people are like. That's what most people are doing, and I don't want that for you to happen. I don't want you to have brain rot. I want you to escape, form your own kingdom, so you can live a life where you can trust people and enjoy all the things that life has to offer.
At least now we got an associate professor. And if I look at Jason, I got a postdoctoral researcher. So I got a handful of people here. But first year student, somebody working at Thinking Machines, they looks like their review helped them get a job, huh? Leave a good Yelp review, we'll get you a job at our $50 billion startup. It's definitely not a money grab.
It is all based on lies. It is all fake. But let's jump into George R.R. Martin and the Gods of Westeros.
Races, the children of the forest, and they worshipped the old gods, the gods of the trees, the gods of the rocks and stuff.
And people throughout history have always needed to worship a god. They always had to have somebody that they can look up to, who they can externalize their decision making to, and that is what AI is becoming. Okay, it is becoming the Westerosi gods of the humans.
Of the mountains, of the streams, who had no names. There were no churches or temples, and there was no priesthood. And the symbol of them was the weirwood trees, these white trees with red leaves and red sap, so when you cut them with a knife, they would seem to bleed. They became the center of the religion of the old gods. Then at a certain point, the first men came to Westeros, the first human beings crossing from Essos. The first men accepted the gods of the children of the forest. In the north, where the lords are still descended from the first men, the old.
So you already had a generation of people in Westeros worshipping the old gods, the weirwood trees, and then you had the first men who came afterwards also worship the weirwood trees, or the old gods, as they say. Okay, and this is what's going to happen, and how it's going to play out here on Earth in the real world is the elites, people who with money and status, are going to start worshipping AI. Okay, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, all these people, Peter Thiel, they will start worshipping AI and outsourcing its decision making to the AI. And as it grows more and more powerful, and as human intelligence starts to rot away due to brain rot, due to shortened attention spans, a loss of skills, a loss of creativity, AI will be seen as a god, and people are already doing that. You know, if you go on Reddit, there's a whole sub forum, a subreddit called Claude Boys, where these young people are outsourcing all their decision making to the AI, and it is a situation where you do not want to be in, because AI does not have your best interest for you.
Gods are still worshipped.
Starks follow the old religion.
In Winterfell, they have the godswood,
All these years, and I still feel like an outsider when I come here.
You're not an outsider.
I wonder if the old gods agree.
It's your gods with all the rules.
Starks keep the old god. They also have a little sept there for the seven, because Lady Catelyn, having come up from the south, is a worshiper of the seven.
For many centuries, it's been the dominant religion.
It was a religion that was brought over hundreds of years ago by the Andals.
The entire religion is built around the symbology of seven. The symbol of it is the seven-pointed star.
7 blessings on you, your grace.
The seven gods.
And the seven gods is basically the same god with seven faces. You know, you have the father, the mother, the warrior, and each different god, the stranger, which is, you know, in a Jungian sense, the archetype of the shadow, and they're all different faces for a different facet of a different godly power. Okay, the mother is more, you know, your femininity, whereas the warrior is the god that you turn to during a crisis, during times of war. Okay, and people always will look out for gods, for people that they can outsource their thinking to, which is why here on Royal Instinct we want you to become a subject matter expert. Okay, because once you become a subject matter expert, you are seen as an authority, and people will outsource their thinking to you. People would reach out to you. People would want to know what is going on. What is your opinion on this? Okay, doesn't matter what your subject of expertise is. When times of crisis come and you're in a position to offer help or offer advice, you know, people will turn to you, and you will be seen as a point of authority. And once you have a following and you're seen as an authority, you can establish a kingdom, because once you have a kingdom, you can be seen as a king. Okay, and that is the position that I want you to be in. That is the future that I want for you.
Gods are seen to be seven facets of the one god.
There are three male aspects: the father, the warrior, and the smith. There are three female aspects: the mother, the maiden, and the crone. And there's the seventh aspect, the stranger, who is neither male nor female, who represents the unknown, represents death. And each of the seven aspects of the god has certain things that they're, of course, in charge of. You pray to the mother for healthy childbirth. You pray to the warrior if you want strength in battle.
May the seven guide her and protect her on her journey. May the mother give her health. May the crone give her wisdom.
They have both male and female priests who are called septons or septas. They also have the equivalent of monks and friars, who are various orders. One of the...
And that is what will happen with AI, okay? The people who originally programmed them, like the elites, such as Elon Musk, such as Peter Thiel, such as Sam Altman, they will be seen, they will have higher positions because they're the ones who brought AI to the masses, and they're hoping to gain some sort of favor from AI for doing that. You know, a lot of people will be displaced. A lot of people will lose their jobs. A lot of people will lose a lot of autonomy in their lives, and AI will be there to collect those people, to offer them guidance and tell them what to do. However, what you have to realize is AI is not a sentient being. It is just a machine that is guessing half the time and trying to accurately predict what it is that you are asking.
Most prominent are the Silent Sisters, who take a vow of silence and are in charge of dealing with the bodies of the slain.
What's dead may never die.
Dead may never die.
On the Iron Islands, they follow their own gods. The Ironborn worship the drowned god.
It's a tough place and it's a tough religion.
They're seafarers, and their god lives under the sea, and they believe that's where their heaven is. They don't fear dying at sea at all, and they don't fear drowning. When they drown, they will be taken down to the halls of the drowned god under the sea, where mermaids will wait on them, and they will feast and frolic for all time. For worships as a drowned god, the holy water is seawater. When you're young, almost as a baptismal rite, they actually drown you, and then you're...
People need rituals, people need customs to something believe in, so that it can unite people. And when you become a king, I want you to create your own customs, your own philosophies in life, so that you can lead your people to a new world, to a better land, in the image that you see fit. Okay, do not outsource your thinking, do not outsource your beliefs onto anyone else. I want you to create your own way of life that you bring to the masses, that you bring to the subjects of your kingdom.
Brought back to life. Theon had that done to him when he was young, just like his brothers did, and his father and his father's father. When he comes back to the islands, having been away for so long, they're worried whether he's still an Ironborn.
I think when Balin first sees his son, he doesn't trust Theon.
Does he honor our god, or has he been converted to these religions?
And, you know, bowing to gods, saying the words to a god, pledging allegiance to a god, is how people will see you or see each other as trustworthy. You know, because if you bow down to the same god, then you are of the same community. But in the times where, you know, people are losing faith in religion, you know, religion is really not really a thing here in the West anymore. You know, you will see people looking for alternatives, which is what AI will do. It will create its own customs for it to subjugate all people across the globe.
Religions of the Greenlands.
My fears have come true. The Starks have made you theirs.
My blood is salt and iron.
His father insists that he be blessed with seawater once again.
Theon of the House Greyjoy, you would this day consecrate your faith to the drowned god.
I would.
That baptism is being reinitiated into the faith of his forefathers.
Let Theon, your servant, be born again from the sea as you were.
He's saying, I'm not a Stark, and he's gone back to the drowned god.
What is dead may never die.
What is dead may never die.
The faith of the Lord of Light has been unable to get a foothold in Westeros until recently.
She's a foreigner, preaching a foreign religion.
And people are afraid of foreigners. People are afraid of change. People are afraid of new views, right? So, you know, if when you do establish your kingdom, be prepared for a lot of people sending hate towards you, not understanding what it is that you're doing. And you need to remain steadfast and strong in light of the opposition, okay? Like here on Royal Instinct, I get many people question what I'm doing. People are not sure what it is that I'm trying to do. And as soon as people, you know, don't understand what it is, I don't try to convert them. I don't try to debate them. I tell them to just, you know, keep it moving, you know, go fuck off somewhere else, because, you know, there's 10 billion people in the world, okay? I don't want to be friends with all fucking 10 billion people in the world. I want to just find the few hundred people, the few hundred people who understand what it is that I'm doing, who understand what it is that can be achieved from a mindset like this, who want to take part in being, you know, controlling their own destiny and living a life of full freedom.
It's the old god's will.
Originally,
I think when Balin first sees his son,
his forefathers,
preaching a foreign religion.
the religion of the Lord of Light is Melisandre's faith.
For the night is dark and full of terrors.
Melisandre, this charismatic priestess from another country, she has powers granted to her.
She's not charismatic. She's just hot, okay? That is that's why people follow the Lord of Light, because there's a hot priestess taking them to a promised
by
land.
some divine force.
She's been there for a while, and she's been trying to convert Stannis.
First, you must give yourself to the Lord of Light.
Even as powerful as the Lord of Light is in Westeros, in the world of Game of Thrones, she still is trying to convert a king. Why is she converting a king? Why is she spending all her time in the books, walking around Stannis, whispering in his ear? Because he is a king, because ultimately he is the decision maker, okay? That is why I do not want you to you know, bow down to any god, bow down to any religion. I want you to form your own religion. I want you to form your own mental framework. I want you to make decisions based on what you believe is right and wrong, because you are the only person that you can fully trust. And when you have an alliance of other friends, other kings who you also trust, together we will be more powerful than all the billionaires and rulers across the world.
I've said the words.
It's very focused on prophecy and on ecstatic visions that are received through communion with the flames.
I have seen the path to victory in the flames.
She believes Stannis to be a savior figure.
There's only one true God, and that's the Lord of Light.
So all these other gods that the people of Westeros are worshiping, the drowned god on the Iron Islands, the Seven, the old gods, they're demons. Therefore, in Melisandre's worldview, they have to be destroyed.
Yeah, and that is how you should be. It is either your way, your belief system, your philosophy, and everyone who opposes that worldview is a demon, is an enemy, because they do not understand what you're doing. Okay, if you treat them as equals, they will destroy you slowly. They will poison drip you. You know, do not fall for that. I want you to remain steadfast. Have faith in yourself. You know, believe in your own strengths and go forth into the unknown. Go into the darkness and bring light to your fellow subjects so that you can live the life that you ultimately want.
A very black and white view of the universe, which rubs many people the wrong way.
All you men were named in the light of the Seven. Is this how you treat the gods of your fathers?
Part of accepting the faith of the Lord of Light is, you know, putting all other gods aside. Ultimately, Stannis yields to Melisandre's entreaties and puts the 7 wooden light.
And when the God of AI comes, I want you to put aside all allegiance to AI and move forward in your own beliefs so that you can remain a human and not just a a biological robot to implement the wishes of AI.
Witnesses of the gods of faith to the fire.
So burning the idols is getting rid of the 7 and paving the way for the new god. And of course, it's not just any god, it's a god of fire.
He is discarding the gods that he has worshipped since childhood and accepting the red god and giving himself to the Lord of Light. And in return, Melisandre sees that the Lord of Light gives him a token
Your sword awaits you.
of his role as the prince that was promised by ancient prophecy. And that's the sword Lightbringer.
He's able to use the religion as a means to an end. And of course, that end is gaining that.
Religion is used to brainwash people and the masses so that you can gain control over people. I want you to remember that so that you don't abuse your powers, that you become a benevolent king, that you become a philosopher king, and that you make the right decision when the time comes to make the moral judgment, the correct moral judgment for your subjects.
Iron Throne.
The Iron Throne is mine, by right.
And that is it. Let's jump into the economic crises in Japan.
Pretty submissive in just a few generations.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Let me start from the beginning.
How did Japanese men go from samurais to pretty submissive in just a few generations? During World War II...
Yeah. I mean, samurais are seen as some of the strongest warriors, some of the best warriors, some of the most noblest warriors in history. They had their own moral code, and people were always fascinated by their warrior mentality and how they practice and live their lives. Okay, I think, you know, Misamoto Musashi is one of the most famous samurais, and he is someone that I studied for a while because he had a dedication to his own philosophy, to his own way of life. And it was a fascinating read, a fascinating character. However, you know, as a man, as somebody who wants to live a better life, you have to decide what is your own moral code. You can't look into history. You can't look at to other people to get them to tell you what to do. You have to make those decisions for yourselves. and then you had a culture of such strong warriors before, and now they are literally turning into these Japanese K-pop stars who are very effeminate, and it is going to be the downfall of Japan.
Japanese soldiers would fight to the last man rather than surrender. It was one of the most hyper-masculine, militaristic societies on Earth. But recently I visited Tokyo, and the contrast was clear. Now, look, I'm no He-Man tough guy, and I live in San Francisco, not the most testosterone-driven place around. But younger Japanese men stood out as particularly mild-mannered and polite, really to the point of being almost gentle and passive. Not effeminate exactly, but missing that edge that's historically defined masculinity. And according to the data, they're also not having sex. A third of Japanese men under 30 are still virgins, and almost half of men in their 20s have never even been out on a date. I'm Ken LaCourte. My deal here is I take an uncomfortable question, research it to understand what's really going on. I try to spot my own biases, and I give you as fair of a presentation as I can. Here I'm going to take you through how Japanese masculinity evolved from the warriors to the salarymen to the modern men of today. And then look at how Japan now struggles with a sexless society. And finally, we'll take a look at how it's not just Japan dealing with these issues, but a growing number of societies.
Yeah, this is a problem all across the globe. Young men are losing hope. They're losing the motivation to take part in society. They aren't able to date because women are being flown around the globe by billionaires. They have endless dating options, and men, the majority of men aren't seen as viable options, and they end up being isolated, lonely, sexless, and in their minds, they have no future to live a life, to progress in life. So they end up just becoming these hermits that stay indoors in their little pods, and because of their low self-esteem, because of their low perceived value of themselves, they are becoming more passive and allowing society to walk all over themselves. That is not what I want from you. I want you to become strong. I want you to take charge of your life so that you do not end up like these effeminate men in Japan.
Societies around the world. Now, for over 1,000 years, Japanese culture was built on the warriors. The samurai emerged in the 1100s as mounted fighters serving feudal lords, and they later became Japanese elites.
Yeah, I don't want you to become just a warrior. I want you to become the feudal lord who hires the warriors so that you can dictate where the power of your army is directed towards.
They weren't just soldiers, but a ruling class, and the ideal definition of what it meant to be a man in Japan. Their Bushido code taught that loyalty to your lord was paramount. If you failed in your duty, or brought shame to your family, or were captured by enemies, you didn't apologize. You performed seppuku, a ritual disembowelment. You plunged a blade into your stomach, drew it across, and if you were lucky, a companion would speed things up with a sword to your neck. Now, it sounds horrible, but it wasn't considered barbaric. It was seen as noble, because living with dishonor was a fate worse than death, which, in effect, was the ultimate expression of honor. As Japan modernized, the samurai class was officially abolished in 1876, but Bushido didn't die. The underlying principles were still the template for Japanese masculinity: loyalty, discipline, stoicism in the face of pain. These values were taught in schools, reinforced by the military, and embedded in the country's national identity. By the early 1900s, as Japan built its empire, this warrior ethos was in place. Japanese soldiers were trained that surrender was disgraceful. Capture.
Japan is a society that really places value on, on the image it projects, its standing amongst other people in society. And what the elites in Japan have done is they've taken all the honorable things, like saving face, not being defeated in combat, loyalty, honor, all these great traits, and then they used it against his own people. They weaponized it in a way where these companies were like, oh, you have to stay loyal to the company, you have to work hard for the company, you can't surrender and take the easy way out. You have to do long hours, you have to work hard and stay disciplined in your job. And many of these companies overworked their employees, to a point where they literally broke their spirit and didn't have anything to show for it going forward. And then what the modern men, what they done is they saw what was happening and they decided not to take part in that society, in that game. However, instead of coming up with something new, coming up with their own life, their own philosophy, their own system that they created, instead they have just given up and are in essence becoming femboys in essence.
It meant you'd failed your emperor, your family, your ancestors. Death was always better. During World War II, Japanese forces had a surrender rate that was a small fraction of other countries, only 1% in Iwo Jima. When battles were lost, sometimes entire units would charge into certain death. Soldiers would detonate grenades or save their last bullet for themselves rather than be captured. And then there were the kamikaze. About 3,800 pilots volunteered to fly planes loaded with explosives directly into Allied ships. Planned suicide missions with ceremonies before they flew. Now, it wasn't the most effective tactic, although it did kill thousands of Allied sailors and damaged a lot of ships. But beyond effectiveness, it showed the world that Japanese warriors feared nothing. Even the atrocities Japan committed during the war, the massacres, the horrific treatment of prisoners, and scientific experiments, they make more sense when you look through that lens.
Yeah, it was a winner-takes-all attitude. It was a way to brute force your way to success. And the elites in Japan have, again, like I said, weaponized it against its own people. Let's jump ahead a little bit. Couple minutes.
Flew in his former commanding officer to formally relieve him of duty. Heuristic culture. They rewrote textbooks, banned films glorifying warriors, pushed democratic values, and gave women the right to vote. So you now had women who just watched hypermasculinity demolish their country being told by their occupiers that the old ways were barbaric and wrong, while simultaneously they were getting new rights.
Yeah, so you had a whole generation brainwashed that the old way wasn't good and that the new way is the correct way to think. Okay, it is propaganda and it is what AI will do to you. It is how they're pushing AI. They're like, oh yeah, learning and thinking for yourself is wrong, so outsource it to AI, because AI is your new god.
Being a warrior was now illegal for men, and what replaced it wasn't really softness, it was reliability and a new battle of rebuilding the country. But before we go on, have you ever wondered how the same news can look? It shows you for only 4. Okay, back to Japanese men. In a post-World War II environment, the salarymen emerged as the new masculine ideal. If you couldn't serve the emperor, you could serve the corporation. Salarymen showed the same unwavering loyalty and self-sacrifice that samurai had shown to feudal lords, but redirected towards their employers.
Exactly. So they took something honorable like the samurai warrior class, and they turned it into a money-making machine where the CEOs and the big companies, the big bosses, would hire their employees, right, and install a warrior samurai mindset into them. But instead of having any honor for that, what would happen is that they will just experience burnout with no reward and a thankless existence.
And the parallels were clear. Companies called them corporate warriors. The language of Bushido was everywhere. Loyalty, endurance, sacrifice for the collective good. You devoted your life to the company and you prioritized work over everything, over your health, your family, your personal desires. And the lifestyle was brutal.
Over your health and your family, right? So it is all for profit. It is all for the betterment of the company. Okay, just make sure you have to remember, and that is how many people, many corporations see you. Okay, like I've been in the corporate system before. I used to work a corporate job, and it is a thankless task. It is you'll get paid for it, but the expense of your dignity, your health, your sanity, and your own soul, because those jobs are soul crushing.
Salarymen work 6 days a week, often 60 to 80 hours weekly. They endured long commutes, sometimes 2 hours each way, packed into trains so crowded that stations had staff physically push people onto cars. After work, There were essentially mandatory drinking sessions with bosses that could last until midnight. These gatherings were often where the real business happened, and they were one more place where your loyalty was demonstrated. You got home late, left early the next morning, and barely saw your family.
What type of life is that? That sounds like a horrible life. That sounds like a life of, it doesn't sound like a personal life. It sounds like a life for the corporation, and you are just, in essence, just a drone.
But in exchange, companies gave lifetime employment. You started at a company after graduating and stayed until retirement at age 60.
So you traded in your honor, your soul for stability, in the hopes of your children making most use of your sacrifice.
Promotions came based on age and seniority more than performance. As long as you demonstrated loyalty, you had security. And for a generation, it worked spectacularly. Japan went from the ruins of World War II to the world's second largest economy in just a few decades. The economic miracle was built on the backs of these salarymen who sacrificed everything.
And even in the US, even across Europe, there's people who got jobs in big factories, big companies in the 60s and 70s. They ended up staying very loyal to those companies, and having a lifelong job, right? However, in the 2000s, those things kind of went out the window because people were easily replaceable, and that is how AI will see you. That's how the elites see you, that they will easily replace you with AI robots.
For the country. But there was a cost. The Japanese had a word for it: karoshi, death from overwork. Men in their 40s and 50s were dropping dead from heart attacks, strokes, suicides from work stress. The salarymen lived in a system that demanded total submission, and it definitely determined your worth as a man. And at home, wives were managing everything alone. The traditional expectation was that women would quit their jobs when they married. They raised their children, took care of all the housework, cared for aging parents, and essentially ran single-parent households while they were married. And then in 1990, everything collapsed. Japan's economic bubble burst, the Japanese stock market plummeted, land values fell 70% over the next decade. Economic growth, it essentially
and you're going to see a lot of that happen here in the West as well. When the next financial crisis happens, when the next stock market crash happens, many people will lose their jobs, many people will lose their property, their economic resources. It's going to be a horrible, horrible time for most people. Most people won't understand what's going on, and they will turn to the next best solution, whatever the elites try to offer. And this time it looks like it will be AI.
Stalled for years and years. They called them the lost decades. Suddenly, there was no more lifetime employment. Companies started using temporary and part-time workers. The salaryman deal was broken. So yeah, you could work yourself to death for maybe a job and an apartment you could barely afford, maybe security that could vanish in the next recession. The women, they'd accepted the salaryman model because it promised a steady income, predictability, and survival, aligning male sacrifice with female security. The trade-offs made sense. But prior to those years, women were also entering the workforce in larger numbers. So for the first time...
So you have a economy where jobs are unstable and hard to come by, and then you add even more labor to that to the unstable job market. So then those salarymen will lose more money because they don't have a stable job, and they have lower salaries, right? Because when you increase the labor supply, then you have a downward pressure on salaries, on wages, and then men, whose self-worth was really tied into their ability to make money, gets pushed down even further.
They didn't need husbands economically. And when women don't need providers, they start to ask, well, what do I want in a partner? The answer could partly be seen in their own media. Female manga artists revolutionized girls' comics, creating romantic fantasies that featured bishonen, beautiful boys. They were slender, delicate, and androgynous.
Yeah, but you have to remember that was for an audience of young girls. But when women grow up, do they want an androgynous male?
They were emotionally expressive, gentle, sensitive. They cried and showed vulnerability, and they communicated their feelings. In other words, they were the exact opposite of their forefathers. Once the lost decades hit, women were effectively done subsidizing male sacrifice that no longer made sense. Because the salarymen were still absent and still exhausted, but now they weren't guaranteeing a middle-class life. Today, when Japanese women describe what they want in partners, number one is kind and gentle. They want men who communicate feelings, share housework, and respect their careers. Women wanted partners who'd actually help raise kids, not absentee fathers who only appeared on weekends. And the result was a generation that in many ways just opted out. Hey, I did a lot of research for this video, but as always, I'm not...
And that is what you're going to see here in the West happen. A lot of people will opt out. I don't want you to opt out. I want you to opt into creating your own land, into your own nation, into your own kingdom. If you understand what I'm talking about, if you understand what I'm saying, then reach out to me. Let's see what we can do together. Let's conquer all the countries in the world. Let's make Earth our bitch. Let's make it the playground for us as the new ruling elites.
Perfect. If I make any substantive mistakes, let me know and I'll correct them in a pinned comment below. And if you're from Japan in a generation, translated into English, it literally means grass-eating men or herbivore men. Let's call them modern men because that's really what they are. Young Japanese men adapting to a world where the old rules don't work anymore. Modern men are well-groomed, fashion-conscious, gentle. They don't show too much interest in aggressively pursuing romantic relationships or even climbing the corporate ladder. They're not trying to prove anything to anyone, and many live with their parents well into their 30s, spending money on hobbies and personal interests instead of cars, houses, or impressing girls. Singlehood is growing, and a substantial portion say they have no interest in romantic relationships at all. As I said in the intro, a third of Japanese men under 30 are virgins, and almost
most people, or most of these men, are saying they don't have any interest in romantic relationships. What they really mean is that they can't afford it, because if you gave any man unlimited money, like, he would be pursuing romantic interest then. Okay, the fact of the matter is that a lot of these men can't afford to maintain a relationship. They can't afford to date, and that is why you're seeing a sexless society. Okay, and notice that, you know, this problem is only affecting men. It is not really affecting women.
Almost half of men in their 20s have never even been on a date. This love withdrawal is unprecedented in Japan's history. So why? Well, part of it's the economics I talked about. Modern men graduated in the last decades and they watched their fathers sacrifice everything for companies that then downsized. And part of it is the mixed messages. Women said they wanted gentle, communicative partners, but many women still expected men to be successful and confident and take initiative in relationships.
Right. So the problem is mixed messages, right? And when you outsource your thinking to someone else, to a different belief system, whether it's a god, whether it's a technology like AI, whether it's your favorite person that you see on the internet, when you outsource your thinking and your decision making, then, you know, there's so many different signals being sent to you, so many different options that you have available to you, that you will end up confused and isolated, which is why you need to reconnect to your soul, which is why you need to understand what it is that fulfills you in life, what your purpose is in life, what brings you meaning. And in that, you will find your zone of genius. And when you find your zone of genius, you can then develop a subject matter expertise in that field, become a thought leader, become somebody who is seen as an authority. And once you have that, you can be seen as a king, and then you will establish a kingdom. Okay, it all has to come from you. You have to be the decider of what you do with your life.
Ultimately to be providers, just being nice about it. And part of it is that the old models simply broke. The warrior path is illegal. The salaryman path led to Kuroshian divorce. There was no third model that actually worked. Just a void where masculine identity used to be. So the young men stopped trying to fill it as they found other alternatives, from hobbies to online worlds. Women got the gentle partners they advocated for, but those men were often unmotivated, unemployed, or living with their parents. Men who opted out found freedom and reduced pressure, but also isolation. And the result was that both sides increasingly chose no relationship at all over either of those bad options. And the natural result of all this is a growing sexless society and no babies. Japan.
That is why I advocate for you to become a king, so that you do not end up sexless, that you can have your pick of women, because as a king, there'll be many women lining up to become your queen.
Japan's fertility rate hovers around 1.3 children per woman, well below the 2.1 needed for population replacement. Year after year, Japan records the lowest number of births since the 1800s. Deaths now outnumber births by over 500,000 people a year. The population peaked at 128 million in 2008, and it's been shrinking ever since. And
it's interesting that it peaked in 2008, which is when the 2008 financial crisis happened, the Great Financial Crisis. That was a moment where many things took place in the economy, where people lost a lot of jobs, they lost economic resources, and it caused hurt ever since.
At its current rate, Japan would have about 63 million people in 2100. Adult diaper sales have exceeded baby diapers since 2011. Even among married couples, more than half are effectively sexless. When married men were asked why, a third said they were too tired from work. Among women, about a quarter said sex was just too much hassle, followed by those who just lost interest after childbirth. All of these forces...
I mean, Japan sounds like a place where all hope has been lost, all hope has died. All these people have nowhere to turn to, nothing to do, which is why they need a hero. They need somebody who can come in and be the decision maker in their lives, which is what OpenAI is trying to do, to become that person in their lives. What I want you to do is to give those people an alternative. This is a bat signal I'm sending out to people. I am collecting the Avengers. I am bringing them together, and together we will be the new superheroes across the world. We will form our own kingdoms. We will launch an attack to save humanity.
Together, they've really created a demographic death spiral. Fewer young people working means more burden on those who are. Higher taxes, longer hours, even less time and energy for relationships, which means fewer babies, which means the cycle continues. It's such a concern that the Prime Minister in 2023 warned that Japan is on the verge of not being able to maintain functioning as a society. With over 10%.
Why is the Japanese government worried about this? Because they want to be at the top, living like kings, while the feudal system, while the slaves at the bottom maintain society and keep the economy prosperous, okay? When this doesn't work for them, the new solution will be AI robots, and then all humanity, all these slaves, all the peasants can be replaced easily, while the elites at the top can still continue to live their lives of luxuries. Become your own king, have your own kingdom, and live a life of your own choosing, of luxury.
% of Japanese now 80 years or older, and a shrinking workforce. That's hard for the young people to support the elderly or the economy. The government's tried everything. Incentives for having babies, campaigns encouraging marriage, subsidizing childcare, and nothing's working. You can't bribe people into relationships when they think the fundamental social contract is broken.
Yeah, nothing's going to work. All these bribes won't work because people realize that the system is fucked, the system is broken. And if you're like me and you want to do something about it, you need to create your own kingdom so you can create your own society where these rules do not apply, okay? We will be collecting many geniuses along the way. We will share information with each other. We will create a network of highly competent, highly intelligent kings in the United Alliance of Kings, and we will fight side by side together, taking over territory, taking over land, and becoming the new de facto rulers of the world.
But it's not just Japan dealing with low birth rates and declining sex lives. The pattern is showing up everywhere. South Korea's fertility rate hit 0.72 in 23, the lowest in the entire world. They call their youth the Sampo generation, meaning they've given up on dating, marriage, and kids. South Korea has poured $200 billion into programs supporting new mothers over the past 16 years. But the birth rate dropped more than 25% during that same time period. China saw what was happening in Japan and Korea and kind of panicked. In 2021, China's government banned effeminate men from television.
China banned cis men from TV in new cultural crackdown. Yeah, because what you consume is what will brainwash the next generation. I mean, I think China is has banned most brain rot TikTok and they are implementing young kids to watch uplifting educational things on YouTube, on or their version of YouTube, on their version of TikTok. Okay, be mindful of what you consume because it will have lasting impacts on your psyche.
Telling broadcasters to resolutely put an end to sissy men and other abnormal aesthetics. And the sex and birth rates aren't just dropping in Asia. The West is following the same trajectory, just a couple decades behind. Marriage rates are falling across Europe and North America. In the United States, almost a quarter of 18 to 29-year-olds hadn't had sex in the past year. And just over half of the 18 to 29-year-old men still live with their parents. Birth rates have dropped below replacement levels in nearly every developed country on Earth. Japan isn't unique, it was just one of the first. I did a whole video looking at that in depth. So I don't know what healthy masculinity looks like in the future. This may be what happens when an entire culture's definition of manhood becomes obsolete and nobody's figured out what should replace it. So I talked earlier about the horrific war crimes Japan committed during World War II, but until I dug into it, I had absolutely no idea how bad they actually were. Their military murdered prisoners just for fun, sexually abused hundreds of thousands of women and girls. They froze babies alive in human medical experiments. Heck, even Nazis wrote to their superiors about the atrocities they saw in Japan. And yet, the emperor in charge during the war was invited to Disneyland before he died. Why did we so quickly forgive and forget Japan's war crimes after World War II? I dug into the answer in this video.
Yeah, so you can see what the current state of the world is. People have, when they have no meaning, when they have no place in society, when they have no jobs, when they have no access to economic resources, you get a generation of men who have no meaning in their lives. They have nothing to live for, okay? I don't want you to be in a situation like that. I want you to be in a situation where you are prosperous. I want you to become a king, become a subject matter expert, become a genius, build your kingdom so people can come and live in your kingdom and you can give them meaning, be the source of meaning for a lot of people, because that is what the world needs. The world needs more heroes. The world needs more leaders. And this is your opportunity to rise to the occasion, to take the call to adventure and become a king, and join me to building your kingdom, work alongside me, and we will take over the world. We will become the new de facto rulers of the earth. If you understand what I'm saying, if you understand what I'm doing, then please reach out. Let's see if we can work together. But that is it for today. Thank you very much, and I will see you soon.